All right, there we go. Sorry about the delay. I guess I never technically said what time I was going to be going live, but it was probably just given that it was going to be 8, but hope you guys are doing well. Happy first day of, well, technically not free agency, but legal tampering, but doesn't quite roll off the tongue as well, does it? So happy first day of legal tampering. New league year starts obviously on Wednesday, but we're going live right now because there's just so much to talk about. I mean, I guess I should have seen this coming, right? It happens every year. There's just a crazy flurry of moves as soon as you're actually allowed to make them. And it's worth noting that none of these are technically official yet. And we actually did see a case of one player agreeing to terms, but then not actually signing with that team and ended up going to another team. We'll talk about that maybe in a little bit, but some kicker drama. But as always, just feel free to say hello if you're in chat. I've got my new setup up and running for the second time now. I used it for a video and then a stream, and now here's stream number 2. So hope that this should be a good one. I've got chat up on my left as well as Twitter, which I'll just be checking because, you never know. Something crazy might happen out of nowhere. But I've got ESPN up in the middle screen where I'll just be pulling up some of the deals. And we've actually had a few trades happen too. So that'll be something to explore. But yeah, just feel free to say hello if you're in chat on a nice here Monday night, 8:06 out here in Georgia. Got off work not that long ago, and it was a busy day, let me tell you. It was a bad day for free agency deals to start. I had a lot of work I actually had to do, and some of the people that might go back and watch us later might find that hard to believe considering how much I was on my phone, but it was quite the balancing act, I will say that. First office job, I guess. I wouldn't call it an office job, but you have to go in pretty much every day. But what can you do, right? But yeah, a lot of surprising moves. The Vikings made some pretty good moves today, I gotta say. I was pretty impressed, pretty happy with some of the guys that we got. But hopefully I sound okay. I know I had a few a few suggestions, gentle reminders about my sound level last time. Maybe it was a little bit too quiet, so I tried to turn up the gain just a little bit more on my microphone. I've been moving it around a little bit too. Try to put it a little bit more in front of me so it's still not blocking me, but it just picks me up a little bit better. One thing I have noticed, and I'm seeing it on OBS and I'm seeing it on YouTube, and I noticed it a little bit when I watched it back, is that my camera tends to refocus a lot, and I would like to figure out a way to fix that. It is kind of nice how it can focus on me like that, but I don't know if it gets a little jarring. I'm looking right now to see. It's not really doing it right now. Kind of, but like you see it move a little bit. That's not the camera moving. That's it like refocusing on me, but all very interesting stuff. Oh, now chat's not showing. Not that makes a difference right now. I'm the only one in here. There's a fly that got in here somehow. Yeah, it's warm enough for me to have flies. Different from my previous setup back in Fargo. We've got flies in March now. Certainly no bugs right now in North Dakota. Although it's been warm at times. I don't know what the current weather is there, but it's had its moments. Now I lost my mouse. There it is. But I don't want to dive in yet in case you're watching this back maybe. I mean, I definitely could just talk to myself, but I'd like to save some of the takes and stuff for once people do get in here, but we'll see. I know it's happened before, and people have their own lives outside of me, as much as I might try and believe otherwise. But Texans made a signing. We might talk about that one. We'll see how many we actually get to today, because there's been a lot. And, I did my free agent preview stream last week, and I only got to like 20 because I was just talking so much. But there's a lot to say, so. But I don't know why I'm scrolling Twitter on my phone when I literally have it up on my screen. I get distracted sometimes. Here we go. Got Christine in here saying hello and just stopping by for a sec, but hi. Welcome to the stream, Christine. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having fun on your little trip. How was today? Hopefully things weren't as closed today, but good to see you in here. It's been a crazy day. How about the Falcons, huh? Getting Kirk Cousins. That'll probably be the first thing I end up talking about here. That was kind of the big news of the day here, right? Kirk Cousins. What'd I tell you? I told you it was going to happen. You should be excited. I think it's a pretty good move, all things considered, for the Falcons. And, you know, there's some implications and people might get freaked out about how long the contract is or how much money it is. But it's a rare opportunity to make just such a substantial upgrade at the quarterback position. And I think you take it. Christine says, Kirk Cousins going to the Falcons? Crazy. It is crazy. I mean, who would have thought, right? From my favorite team to yours and just the Falcons, Vikings crossovers, even beyond just me. I mean, how about like the John Boys Bowl, right? The John Boys history of documentaries, the 1998 NFC Championship game. Both of them kind of known for being just gross underachievers historically. So it is funny how Kirk goes from the Vikings to Vikings South. We've got Michael in here too saying, what's poppin', Eric? How was work? Work was good today. Crazy thing happened, and I don't know the full story necessarily, but there's something going on with, I think, maybe the postal service right now, or the mail service or something. Not 100% sure what, but we had just a ridiculous amount of calls come in today. People calling our newsroom saying that they didn't get their paper last week, or some people, they haven't gotten it the past 2 weeks. And we had a few people even come in and say that they hadn't been getting their paper. So just a weird, bizarre situation. It was very busy today. You know, we've got a Thursday. We print on Thursday, so Wednesday's our deadline to get like everything in. So I got a few stories done today. Had to cover some things over the weekend. Got to go to someone's 100th birthday, believe it or not. Shout out Dr. Amos Samuel Whiff, turned 100 last week. So pretty good overall though. But I won't lie, I was checking my phone seeing some of the deals happen. But I promise I was productive. White County News, if you're watching this, I mean, hey, I did get 2 stories done today, so I promise I wasn't too distracted. Christine saying, good, more stores open today, but they close so early. I don't know what the deal with that is. It's just so weird. I don't get it. And you'd think for a place that has as many people visit them as they do that they would be just a little bit more open, but who knows? It's bizarre. I don't know why things closing at like 4 o'clock, but also from a worker's perspective, I totally get it because, once you close, that means you're off. So, it'd be pretty sweet if White County News closed at like 3, but also, we've got stuff to do. I now understand the working man. So Henry's in here saying, what's up, doctor? Crazy day in the league. Oh, was it ever? This league. And you know what? Hey, shout out Kirk Cousins, right? Hey, not to pat myself on the back too hard here. I saw the visions since January. You remember that stream where we played some Sporkle quizzes and I talked about some of the new hires, right? And we talked about Raheem Morris. What did I say? I said, you know what? They just brought in Zach Robinson. Maybe this would be a pretty good team for Kirk Cousins. And what do you know? They got Kirk Cousins. We've got 6 in here now. Let's just dive in. Let's get it started. And who else should we start with other than Kirk Cousins? The headline says it all. Leaving the Vikings for a 4-year, might I add, 4-year deal with the Falcons. And, I read some of the fine print a little bit. We'll dive a little bit deeper into it. But it's a 4-year deal in text only. It's really only a 2-year deal from the looks of it. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Let's talk about the football standpoint of it first, because this just is a deal that makes so much sense. As we've got Pair Champ and Game Solved in here too. Welcome to the stream, guys. Pair Champ says, hey, doctor, sorry for your QB leaving. Crazy Kirk got a 4-year deal, especially after the ACL injury. I thought it could happen for the deal. Seems overly expensive. Game Solved waiving. And Applied Literature. I think we've got a new person in here. No way. Welcome to the stream, Applied Literature. saying, Kirko, let's get it, ATL. We've got some Falcons fans in here. We've got some Kirk talk, and it's perfect timing. So, PearChamp, we will get to your comment here in a sec. I like how you brought up the financials, the structure of the deal. That's obviously very important for Kirk. But let's talk about the football standpoint first. As Henry says, you've got me bought in. Let's go. Let's go. Right? So let me say first and foremost, I seem awfully cheery, right? For those that might not know, I'm a Vikings fan. I seem awfully cheery for our quarterback leaving. And it's not that I'm happy to see Kirk go, right? This year was a very, very good lesson for me in what Kirk Cousins is and kind of what the Vikings had. And that's not to say that I ever thought that Kirk was terrible, but if you go back and you look at my channel, it's so funny. It's a full circle moment, right? My very first video was like a 20-minute video of me saying it's time to move on. Thank you for your service, Kirk. This was last year, by the way. It's time to move on. And now it's actually happening. But after how things played out last year, it is just immensely clear what he is. And there, you can look at it glass half full or glass half empty. But he is probably somewhere between the 9th to 12th, 13th best quarterback in the league. There are a few things that he's very, very good at. He's got an excellent arm that can make all the throws. He's extremely smart. He can stand in the pocket, and he can take some hits. He is a tough son of a gun. And up until this year was the picture of durability. And when you put him in an offense that plays into his strengths, like what the Vikings did, the results are pretty darn good. Now, he wasn't perfect. I think there are some people that view Kirk as like, oh, he played like the 49ers game the full season. Oh, he played like the Packers game the full season. Not necessarily true. I mean, the Bears game was pretty rough. Granted, that was the first game without JJ, but the Panthers game was pretty rough, Even the Bucs game, I would say, was a little misleading, and that I don't think he was quite as good as what some of these stats would indicate. And, the Vikings scored 17 points. Some of that's on the run game, but a game like the Bucs game showed his limitations, where he struggled to deal with some of the pressure that the Bucs were getting up the middle, and a few bad mistakes cost them on a few drives, and that was the game. But overall, for the most part, he played fantastic. Now he goes to Atlanta, and I've said this so many times on end. I don't want to beat around the bush too much, but it's a perfect fit schematically. If you look at the coaching staff that the Falcons have, if you look at the roster that the Falcons have, if you look at the timeline that the Falcons have, it just makes sense. They are getting just a ridiculous upgrade at the quarterback position. Going from Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke to Kirk Cousins, even though it's not maybe as exciting as Lamar Jackson. I totally get that. You are getting a good quarterback with an offensive coordinator who comes from the coaching tree that adores Kirk Cousins, with the types of receivers that Kirk Cousins likes to throw to. Drake London, big guy, strong, can go over the middle of the field, can go deep a little bit, but really good in the intermediate area. Kyle Pitts, big, strong, can go over the middle of the field, good in the intermediate area. You've even got Bijan Robinson, who offers a lot as a receiver. They can put him in the slot some. He's a great threat out of the backfield. There's a lot of pieces there, and perhaps most importantly, pretty good offensive line, right? Kirk is not athletic. He cannot make guys miss. He can't really buy extra time. But if you protect him, if he doesn't have to do that, that's where he dices you up from the pocket. It just makes so much sense from a football standpoint. I'll check chat, and then we'll dive into the contract a little bit. So, Henry's saying, actually really like the contract structure. I'm with you. I thought that both sides kind of get what they want. Henry also asking, do you believe the Vikings actually made a push to get Kirk at the end? I think that in a perfect world, they wanted to bring him back. However, and I don't know what the threshold was, but I believe there was absolutely a limit on both price and years that the Vikings were not going to budge on whatsoever. Knowing the way that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, our GM, operates, and how he's a Wall Street guy and he's trying to moneyballify the Vikings. Not that it's a bad thing necessarily, but there absolutely just seemed to be a price that we would not go past, and the Falcons went past it, and it came down to that. So I do think it's very interesting how they made it very clear the whole time, like, we're trying, we're trying. And I think they were just like, they kind of knew he wasn't coming back, and they were just like, they didn't want to tell the fans, we just let him go for nothing. We didn't even try. But I don't know how seriously they tried. Also, Spotrac didn't seem to have the gritty details, so we'll try and find it in here. But we've got Jack in here as well saying, what's up, Doc? What's going on? Good to have you back here in the stream. Crazy, crazy day of free agency. What can I say? But it's good to have you in here. We'll get some Seahawks talk here in a little bit. I saw they made a move not that long ago, I believe, right? I saw Jordan Brooks' name. I'm assuming that meant he was back. Let me just double check that. Or did he go somewhere else? Oh, snap. No, he went to the Dolphins. Okay. I just saw Jordan Brooks' name, and I assumed that they brought him back. Oh, snap. Okay, so the Seahawks losing a linebacker. Interesting. What are your thoughts on that? I kind of like Jordan Brooks, but I wonder if they've got a plan in free agency. They're a team I could see spending on linebacker. But anyways, so the Cousins contract, right? When you read it like this, you think, oh, crap. 4 years, $180 million with $100 million guaranteed. That is a lot. I mean, 4 years is crazy, right? You think, wow, is he really going to try and play until he's 40 years old? However, and I gotta try and find it somewhere. They've got to have it somewhere, right? Maybe Over the Cap already has it put in. I believe there are 2 void years in there, and I still can't see it. But essentially, it looks like there are 2 void years in there, and the way it's structured is the Falcons can get out after 2 years. That's my understanding of it. And so you can really just think of it as a 2-year deal, and after that, they'll get out of it. That, to me, is the perfect time right there, right? And again, it matches up with their timeline with some of the rookie contracts that they have, these playmakers, and how they spent big on defense last year. Now they can spend big on their quarterback. This is it right here. This is as good as this Falcons core is going to get. And you know what? I think it's something to get excited over. I think that they absolutely are the best team in their division now. They are honestly probably one of the better teams in the NFC. They are on an inside track to win probably 11, maybe even 12 games, get a home playoff game, and just see where it goes from there. And you know what? I think if you're Atlanta, you absolutely take that. You had a nice little period where you tried to build up your core a little bit. Now it's time to go. You might not win a Super Bowl, right? It's not quite like Stafford going to the Rams, but you know what? That's okay. Sometimes 12-win seasons are good, actually. So I think that Falcons fans and Atlanta has every right to be excited. I think that they're absolutely one of the big winners of free agency. They addressed their biggest need with the best player available. That's a win. That's a win. Parachamp saying, I am sad that Aaron Jones is leaving the Packers. I understand it, but he really is the heart of the Packers. Such an amazing person and truly what a Green Bay Packer is. We are getting Josh Jacobs. Let's talk about that next. That is an interesting move. That was an interesting sequence of moves, I should say. I was for one shocked to see Josh Jacobs go to the Packers. I was even more shocked to see them then turn around and release Aaron Jones. And I think you have the right to be bummed if you're a Packers fan. I like the idea of Josh Jacobs with the Packers, and I'll get to that. But let's start with Aaron Jones, because to be honest, I think the Packers got rid of the better back. I like Aaron Jones a lot. I get he's a little bit older, and I get that he struggled with injuries, but man, when he came back this year, he was still so good. I still just can't help but think that there's some tread left on his tires, right? It can be easy to see the big 2.9 and get scared and think, oh gosh, he's going to fall off. Man, he did not close out the season like a back that was about to fall off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight 100-yard games. He's always been good under Matt LaFleur. He fits perfectly in what they do with all their zone runs, his ability as a receiver. He's been such a good back for so long. I was really hoping when I saw the Packers get Josh Jacobs, in my mind, before they cut Jones, I thought, okay, this is them trying to rectify A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon didn't work out as well. They wanted to pair a power back with Jones, have a 1-2 punch. LaFleur has always liked his committees. He's always invested a lot into the running back position. Let's get Josh Jacobs and have him be just better A.J. Dillon. but then they cut Jones. And so, I don't know. There's probably a rationale behind it. I totally could see them not just standing pat. I don't think that the Packers running back depth chart is set by any means. Because if we could just judge based off what we've seen Matt LaFleur and the Packers do, they have invested a lot into the running back position. They drafted A.J. Dillon in the second round, which puzzled a lot of people. Then they doubled down and extended Aaron Jones that same offseason. Back when Matt LaFleur was with the Titans, he had Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray. You know who I'm talking about. Matt LaFleur has always liked investing in the running back position, and he's always liked two good backs. I mean, did they have Jamal Williams for a year with Matt LaFleur? They did, yeah. So I do think that Josh Jacobs will fit well in this offense. I like him a lot as a runner. He didn't have the greatest year last year. He struggled some with injuries, and the Raiders just weren't very good. But as Jack alluded to, man, not that long ago, that he just went absolutely nuclear. And he's got a lot of likable traits. I think he's a very smart, mature back with great vision and patience. And just running in an offense like this, again, with a good offensive line, a good offensive mind, there are going to be holes for him, and I don't question Josh Jacobs' ability to hit the hole. So I'm curious. I still think they might bring someone in. But if Josh Jacobs gets like 220 carries, I think he hits 1,000 yards in this offense. So I like the signing. I just would have liked it a little bit more if they kept Aaron Jones. But they freed up some money, and then they went and got Xavier McKinney, which was another great move for the Packers. They've had some good moves today, I got to say. Jack says, all the Hawks have done is re-sign Fant, and I'm in disbelief that they didn't want to pay Brooks the deal he got with the Finns. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I felt like he was pretty good for them, and that it would have been worth something maybe just running it back with him. And based off what we've seen with the Ravens, Mike McDonald puts a lot on the shoulders of his linebackers. So I wonder if this means that they're going to try and make a play for Patrick Queen. I wonder, but I would have liked to see Jordan Brooks in there. I knew this was going to happen at some point. As we've got Jack in the stream, we've got two Jacks in here. So Jack asking, what did I allude to? There are actually two Jacks in here. We've got the Doty brothers and Michael and Jack Doty in here. So I knew this was going to happen at some point. I don't believe that you alluded to anything. Maybe you did earlier, and that'll come up in a little bit, but we will talk about your boy Kenny Pickett in a little bit. And Michael's Steelers. Look at that. We've got some Steelers being represented in here too. So, but he was alluding to the Josh Jacobs performance against the Seahawks 2 years ago, where 303 yards from scrimmage and the game winner housing it in OT. That was pretty sick. I mean, not for the Seahawks, unfortunately. But that was quite the game. Also saying your man Jacoby Brissett is signing back with the Patriots. Is that for real? Hold on. Selfishly, I'd like for him to go to a little bit better of a team, but you know what? I just want to see him play some football. Let him play. No! I mean, good for him. But he's going to the Patriots. He was supposed to be a Viking, man. Oh. You know what's tough? That is one less option for the Vikings now, and I really do think that they are going to draft a QB based off what we saw today. We'll get to the Vikings here in a sec, but all right. Live on stream, Jacoby Brissett going to the Patriots. You know, he's familiar with the organization. That's the team that drafted him. He stayed there for a while. Someone saying the real successor to Tom Brady. I mean, low-key, right? Not really, but all right. You know what? Good for Jacoby, though. Now he's going to be just average. That's okay. But good for Jacoby. Odds are the Patriots still draft a QB, right? I mean, he probably is just going to be their bridge guy. I wonder, though. Would they want QB3? I don't know. I feel like we will see Jacoby Brissett play a few games. I hope he does well. He seems like a really good guy. I'm rooting for him, but that's crazy. Jacoby Brissett to the Pats. Maybe he won't be the Cinderella. Who knows? And now it'll just be even crazier if Jacoby Brissett took this Patriots team to the playoffs. I don't think that's going to happen. They don't have any receivers. We'll see. It is interesting times over in Foxborough right now. But wow. Oh, I let myself get a little too excited. I thought that there was like a 10% chance the Vikings would get him, but oh well. You can't make every perfect move, right? Parachamp says the Raiders and Packers have swapped a lot of players with one another. Woodson, Devontae, Nixon, and now Jacobs. Yeah, that's crazy. That's a very good point. I never even thought about that. What a weird crossover. Of course, when I think of the Raiders and Packers, I immediately think of that Brett Favre performance on Monday night. I think it was the day after his father passed away, and he threw 4 touchdowns against the Raiders. That's the first thing that comes to mind for me with Packers Raiders. But yeah, a lot of crossover, you know? You immaculate good players can keep your eyes peeled for the Raiders Packers square. Michael saying, no, 2 Jacks. They're multiplying. Jack saying, sad day for my boy. It is a tough day to be Kenny Pickett. Ugh. Games asking, now that Kirk has left Minnesota, do you think Jefferson will be content playing with another most likely rookie QB? Well, let's hope so. Let's hope so. There is a lot of chatter about that, and this is Instagram, and I try not to let Instagram comment sections, get to me too much, but I went to the comments of the post of Kirk signing with the Falcons, and I think the second top comment was, Jefferson's gone. And it's like, man, come on. Just let us have him for once. For once, just let us keep him, please. Let's just get the deal done. The sooner we get the deal done, the less that we have to talk about who could he leave. But, I mean, it's not impossible. We'll see. I'd like to think he would be bought in, though, regardless of QB, because we have an offensive coach who clearly tailors his game plan to him. And honestly, I mean, he was going nuts with Nick Mullins. So I don't think that Jefferson should necessarily be too worried about if someone can get him the ball or not, because it's pretty hard to not get it to Justin Jefferson. Well, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, odds of a rookie gone up. Let's talk about that. So let's talk about the Vikings ramifications here for this Kirk Cousins situation. And maybe we'll talk about our day in free agency too. I'll get the Vikings talk done with now. Not that you guys are annoyed with it, but I want to give all the teams love. But you know what? The Vikings were pretty busy today, in my defense. And, losing your starting quarterback at 6 years is big news, I would say. So the big question, the $1 million question is, what do the Vikings do at quarterback after losing Kirk Cousins? And I think conventional wisdom would probably suggest that we draft someone. I'm starting to think that's going to be the case based off not only Kirk leaving, but also how we behaved in free agency today. You want to know why I'm pretty happy, even though the Vikings lost their quarterback? Is because they made some moves that I am very, very high on, and they addressed one area of the team that I talked about a lot in my last stream. Just one that looked like a pure, pile of garbage, a big weakness, liability. You know what? Quasi listened to us, and he went out and he got us some pass rushers. The big one, of course, being Jonathan Grenard. That was like the first big signing to happen today, and I was actually, again, White County News, if you're watching, I was so locked in, I didn't even see that till like an hour later. I had no idea that Jonathan Grenard, as I completely butchered the typing of that, signed with the Vikings until I checked. And I was like, oh, snap, we got Jonathan Grenard. It's so funny because people said, oh, he was a great number 2 for the Texans last year. Are we sure he wasn't their best pass rusher last year? I'm not just saying that. Like, Will Anderson is very good, obviously. Jonathan Grenard got 12.5 sacks. And a lot of his deeper numbers... Yes, I'm going to pull up PFF. I'm not going to pull up the grades unless they help my agenda. But let's take a look at some of his deeper numbers here. 12.5 sacks. Guys like that don't grow on trees, and it fixes an immediate need. But let's dive deeper, right? That's what we do on here. How are his pressures? And I can't pull up win rate because I don't have a subscription to True Media, unfortunately. Only like the big shots at ESPN get that, which breaks my heart. But we can look at pressures. And 53 pressures is pretty good. I don't get where the 14 sacks comes from. PFF is always weird about the sacks, but I don't know where exactly that would rank for his position. Let's take a look, though. Let's take a look. But he's a good player, and he flashed a lot for Houston last year. There's always been potential there. His sophomore year is when he kind of broke out. He struggled with injuries some. He's been off and on, but there's always been talent there. And last season, he really took the bull by the horns. He's younger and cheaper than Danielle Hunter. He's not as good, in my opinion, but we might get about 85% of Danielle Hunter for a much, much cheaper cost and for longer. So I can't hate that whatsoever. No. I don't want grades. Let's look at pressures. So Jonathan Grenard, 44th in pressures. Not bad. And the other guy we signed, Andrew Van Ginkel, right there alongside him. I like the Van Ginkel signing a lot, too. He makes sense in that he played with Brian Flores before. Again, we get another good pass rusher. Van Ginkel and Grenard is going to be better than Danielle Hunter and DJ Wanham, in my opinion. And Van Ginkel has the versatility where you can drop him back into coverage just a little bit. Not a lot, but enough where he won't be a problem. And that's something that the Vikings haven't quite had since switching to a 3-4. As great as Danielle Hunter is, he certainly can't do that. We tried to do that with DJ Wanham, and it just didn't work out. But Van Ginkel is a guy you can do that with. And his experience with Brian Flores, he was a great player for the Dolphins last year. So I like the signing at the price point, too. I think it was like 2 years, $20 million. So big moves, and then bring in Blake Cashman at linebacker, right? They spent a lot on defense. So to circle back to my point here, considering they spent so much at edge in free agency today, I don't think they're going to draft one. And if they're not going to draft edge at 11, I feel like they're going to use their first-round pick on a quarterback. And as Gabe is saying, JJ, I don't think he's talking about Justin Jefferson. He's talking about the Michigan Wolverine, JJ McCarthy, and that seems to be the odds-on favorite. I have him as my QB3 in this class behind Caleb Williams and Drake May. Now, that doesn't mean that I think that JJ McCarthy is going to be this world-beater all-pro level, but I think there's at least something there where you can develop him into a quality starting quarterback. Now, would I want to trade up at 5 to get him, which might be the price? And we'll see. There's always a lot of smoke. Would I want to essentially give up 2 firsts or a first and a second for him? No, I probably wouldn't. But if he was there at 11, I'd be like, yeah, go for it. Go for it. It is a very weird spot to be in, though, because there still is not quite an obvious answer at quarterback. And maybe there is a bridge guy. Someone that's been talked about a lot is Sam Darnold, unironically. I'll talk about Sam Darnold here in a sec. Let's check chat here. So, Jack saying, let's go. The Hawks re-signed Leonard Williams, 3 years, up to $64 million. Yeah, I had something pop up on my phone. Look at that. Okay, not bad. That's a pretty good move, right? We talked about Leonard Williams last week. Good to see the Seahawks bring one of their guys back. Jordan Brooks leaving. I guess it makes sense knowing now that they're going to go get Leonard Williams. So, not bad. And you know what? I feel like he might have a good year next year playing in that defense. Michael saying, don't forget about Jordy Nelson. Yeah, I forgot he played for the Raiders. That's right. Wow, that's crazy. I think a lot of people did. And then Parachamp asking, do you think the Jets would try and get Jefferson? Ooh, I mean, that would be really tough to do, because if they did trade for him, the only way it would make sense is that they'd have to give him a massive extension. I mean, they'd have to make him the highest paid receiver in football. And with the way their roster kind of shakes out and how Rodgers has this big deal that he backloaded and it's going to kick in later so that they can kind of be in this win now mode. I mean, this is kind of the year for the Jets. And so I guess if they really wanted to, they could just throw a boatload of picks, hope the Vikings say yes, and then get him for a year and then maybe not pay him. Or I guess you get that 5th-year option. But I would say that's unlikely, but I do think the Jets are in the market to make some sort of move. I think their biggest priority should probably be offensive line, given Rodgers' age, the fact that he's coming off an injury and it's not very good, but they could definitely use another receiver opposite Garrett Wilson too, and not just whatever buddy Aaron Rodgers feels like calling up one day. Oh, man. But Gabe says, it was nice to get home It be light out. I'm sorry. Oh, I stumbled over that so poorly. It is nice, right? Shout out daylight savings time. I have a hot daylight savings time take, and that's that I think it's actually a good thing. And it's annoying to have to set your clock forward, especially when it happens on a Sunday, but I don't know. I don't know. Asking how much money donation would it take for you to do a mock draft this stream? Oh, this stream? You know what? That would actually be kind of fun. I would do it for free, to be quite honest. I wouldn't take any sort of donation. If that's what the people want, I would gladly do that. I like a nice little mock draft, and let the dust settle in a little bit. I'll try my best. I haven't dove into every first round prospect yet, but I feel like I've got a decent idea at least now. So there might be some parts where I'm BSing a little bit more, but that might be kind of fun. Henry asking thoughts on Mekhi Becton. Interesting. Did Mekhi Becton just get signed? Or is he just a free agent in general? I will say he looked very good his rookie year. And then, or is this just general Jets offensive line talk? Which if that's the case, then heck yeah. He was very good his rookie year. And he's just dealt with so many injuries, and then there was the weight gain saga. He's had a very, very interesting career so far. I wonder just through all the injuries and attrition how much of him is left, but man, like those 10 games he played his rookie season were so sick. He had the very rare offensive lineman highlight reel, but I don't know. He's just not quite who I hoped he could become. But he's still, even like now, like there'll still be a few plays every game where it's like, whoa, like Mekhi Becton just put a guy on his back. But there's just not quite the consistency that you'd want out of a first round left tackle. So, but as a buy low, as you're saying, honestly, not terrible. I won't hate that. And you know what? They seem to develop their offensive linemen pretty well down there in Atlanta. So maybe they could just tap into whatever, and you can never have too much offensive line depth. I mean, seriously, right? You can look at your starting lineup and be like, oh, this line is so nice. And then 2 plays in, a guy gets hurt. And all of a sudden, oh, crap, we've got our second string guard in. Or, oh, crap, we've got to kick our guard into center and put our left guard at right guard. And just so depth is good, especially at offensive line. And it's hard to find. So I wouldn't hate that. I would not hate that. Parachamp saying T. Higgins is also an interesting player on the market who wants a trade. Yeah, I haven't even talked about that yet. That news came out, I believe, this morning, right? That he requested a trade. Let's talk about that instead of Sam Darnold. Maybe we'll talk more about Sam Darnold later. I don't know why I typed request. I'm all over the place today. But yeah, T. Higgins asking for a trade. Interesting move. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to leave. But not the Chiefs. I just saw a headline said, no, the Chiefs aren't going to trade for T. Higgins. Who knows at this point? I wouldn't put it past him. But he's been such a key part of this Bengals run. And no, he's not Jamar Chase. No, he's not their number one. But he has very consistently been a good receiver for them when he's been healthy. And even this year, he dealt with some injuries and just the pressure of the contract year, which he said got to him a little bit. Man, just watching that Vikings game, right? Vikings-Bengals, just the way he absolutely bullied us. It's very obvious he's a very, very good receiver. And I think that the Bengals could get a second, maybe even first-round pick for him, which is pretty rare for a player who's on the tag, right? You only get one more year of team control. But he is that good of a player. He's young, so you could probably line up an extension right off the bat, and that'd be another price you'd have to pay. If you're really feeling yourself, right, you could try and backdoor negotiation with him. Say, hey, we're going to pay up. Like, come here. You'll get paid right away. And Cincy, take our draft pick. However, and we talked about this last week, I would like the Bengals to be stubborn here and hold on to him. Yes, you might lose him for free next year. But just with the way things are lining up, and I mean, a domino even fell today with Chidobe Awuzie signing with the Titans, I believe. DJ Reader's a free agent. He's probably not back. And then next year, you've got to worry about the Chase contract and everything. Man, this is low-key kind of your last stand with this core. You might as well just keep T. Higgins. Yeah, you might lose him for free next year, but you sure as heck want him this year. If you could keep Burrow healthy, you're one of the better teams in the NFL. The defense is still good. You'd have maybe the best 1-2 wide receiver punch in the league. Like, just go be good again this year. Worry about T. Higgins next year. But if someone really wanted to pay up, they could probably try and get him. But it might cost a first for a team to actually trade for him. I think the Bengals might try and be stubborn. They usually just kind of let their guys play things out, right? They did that with AJ Green. They did that with Jesse Bates. I think that the Bengals are going to try their best to hold on to him, which I agree. I think that's the right move. Gabe saying, Jonah Jackson, he is dead to us. He is dead to me. If you know, you know. Quoting a legendary Giants running back, Tiki Barber, who said that about Saquon today. Saquon signing with the Eagles. How about that? That's Howie, you did it again. You know, that is a classic Howie signing, right? That's what we were talking about last week, Jack. Of course, the Eagles go get the big name running back. And you know what? This one might actually work out pretty well because I thought Saquon wasn't always pretty, but I still thought he ran pretty well this year, considering the team that he's on. And, you know, he's always dealt with injuries. But, man, when he's healthy, still a pretty good player. Sorry, I got an emergency alert on my phone. I get those now because of work. Nothing bad is going on. It doesn't pertain to me, and it didn't look that serious, but I did see that. Shout out the public safety department over here in White County. But yeah, Jonah Jackson signing with the Rams, right? The team of Dr. Pigskin, the Rams, paying up for their interior offensive line. They bring back Kevin Dotson, and then they go get Jonah Jackson. I like it. Good player. Good player. Jordan Hicks to the Browns. Interesting. So I guess, it totally makes sense now why the Vikings went and got Blake Cashman. Cashman had a pretty good year last year, and he's also from Minnesota, might I add. So it just makes sense, right? But that definitely meant Jordan Hicks was gone. Now he's off to the Browns. I don't hate it, right? They could always use another linebacker. And I guess outside of JOK, who's their other linebackers? I wonder what the terms are. I'm sure it's a short deal, pretty team friendly. But let's pull up the Browns depth chart here. Where would he be sliding in? So JOK, obvious keeper. Probably one of the best linebackers in the league. Tony Fields, that's right. That's a name. Okay, so he'll probably take Tony Fields' spot if I had to guess. Jack says, Seahawks dealt with a 41-year-old Jason Peters playing all over the line thanks to injury, so I concur with the statement about O-line depth. Oh, absolutely. If you can find it, keep it, you know. But I get it. Like, the guys want to play and everything. But, man, if you can have versatile guys on the second line of your offensive line that you can just kind of insert all around, man, that's just such an asset. Such an asset. But, yeah. Saquon to the Eagles. He'll finally get to run behind a good offensive line. I think the Eagles definitely upgraded at running back today. They let DeAndre Swift go, bring in Saquon. Yeah. Gabe seeing the news. Jacoby Brissett to the Patriots. Yeah. Shout out Jack for breaking that news to me. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if the glass slipper fits over in Foxborough. I am pretty fired up. Let him start, man. Just let him start a few games. I just want to see something. He's so unlucky, man, in that he, for the past 2 years, has not gotten a serious shot to start because of roster politics, right? He was just objectively so much better than Deshaun Watson the previous year, right? He played so well in those 11 games, but there's no way that they couldn't start Watson after what they gave up to him to get him, right? The draft picks, the contract, public goodwill. They had to play Watson. And then he goes to the Commanders, and there's no way that the Commanders won't play Sam Howell, right? Because he's the young guy, and they want to see what they have in the kid. And, man, as soon as Brissett comes in, they just get so much better. And all of a sudden, wow, holy crap, look at that. Terry McLaurin's having a good game. And it's so funny. When I was just, going through on Twitter, looking at Jacoby Brissett stuff. This is what I do in my free time. But I saw a tweet from one of the games he was in with the Commanders just like a few months ago. I think it was against the Jets. And a Commanders fan was like, oh, now all of a sudden Eric Bieniemy wants to run play action under center with Brissett. It's like, yeah, because he can do that and Sam Howell can't. And like one of the quote tweets was like, look at how many snaps under center Sam Howell played in college. It's like, of course they're doing it now. They can. Like they couldn't do that with Sam Howell. So let him cook. Let Jacoby Brissett cook. Henry asks, do you think that means the Pats trade out of their pick? I mean, as a Vikings fan, I hope so. Well, I think I hope so. Not if it's for Jaden Daniels, but if it's for Drake May, you might see me cry on stream if the Vikings drafted Drake May. Not for Jaden Daniels, though. Just not as high on him, especially in the context of the Vikings offense. But I wonder, or as Gabe makes a good point, get a Maserati Marv. It could mean that they just get a wide receiver because Lord knows the Patriots need one, right? And if they really don't like any QBs outside of the top two, I mean, why not just go get the best wide receiver prospect since Jamar Chase, maybe even before that? I mean, seriously, it makes a lot of sense. And I think they purged some of their receivers today. Didn't they get rid of Juju? So let me find the Patriots here. Wide receiver would make a lot of sense if they just stick and pick with Marvin Harrison at 3, because you like to think that the top 2 are probably going to be quarterbacks. Did Juju go? I know they brought back Kendrick Bourne. All I'm seeing is Antonio Brown stuff. Maybe they didn't. But either way, even if they kept Juju, and this is coming from someone that's always liked Juju Smith-Schuster, like, I don't know how you could put any rookie quarterback into this situation and expect them to succeed. I mean, have we learned nothing from the Panthers last year? And I mean, I get, like, if you need a quarterback, you might as well just, like, take one. But they don't have any serious receivers. They don't. Like, Kendrick Bourne is cool, but he's like a 3, realistically. Juju is probably a 2, realistically. I mean, he was a 2 with KC. Travis Kelce was their 1. And that was the Chiefs with Mahomes and Reed and everyone. So I think that maybe this means that they would be more inclined to take Marv, just run it out with Brissett. Because they're just a team that they have a lot more issues than just QB. Although they did trade Mac Jones, though, so maybe they are getting ready for a QB. Who knows? I don't think that they're going to trot out Bailey Zappi as their full-time starter. But they're an interesting team to watch. They're a real wild card in that they need a QB, but they might not take one. The draft starts at 3, as people always like to say. Like, oh, the draft starts at pick number 5 and stuff like that. We'll see, but that's an interesting one. Gabe says, clip the I hope so. I'll have to go back and look at that later. We got a little discourse in here. Jack saying, I think Daniels is the best QB in the class. Oh, all right. Well, what I'll say about that is I'm not denying that there is some upside with Jaden Daniels. However, if I had to pick one player that would bust from this class, at least as far as the quarterbacks go, I am going to say Jaden Daniels, and I have a few reasons as to why. First of all, I just question how much his game is going to translate to the NFL. Now, there is a lot to like here, right? He is a good athlete. He obviously brings a lot as a runner. He throws a very pretty deep ball. He does. He puts very nice touch on his passes. He can hit some of those fades down the sideline, right? He's got a nice bag of deep balls if you go back and watch him. However, just with the way that LSU's offense is structured, it really is just Jaden Daniels throw it deep to Neighbors and Brian Thomas, or go scramble. And when he was asked to do some of the tougher stuff like throw over the middle or not throw a go ball, it wasn't always as good. I read somewhere, I think Brett Coleman tweeted this out, 49%, crazy voice crack there, 49% of Jaden Daniels' throws this past season were either go balls or hitches. That's crazy. That's almost half of his throws were feast or famine, just little curls or deep balls. Just crazy. And just there's a lot of instances on tape where, yeah, he had a cool run, but he also had a guy wide open on an inbreaker and he just didn't want to throw it or he didn't see it. And it's a lot easier to make that kind of stuff happen in college against college kids when you're what? I think, is he 23? 22? When you're a fifth-year senior, I can't find his age, but he's old too. That's another thing. When you're a fifth-year senior on a loaded team going up against college kids, and Michael brings up a good point, the weight, right? Saying there's no way he's 210. He's very slight. And with his aggressive running style, he's taken some comical Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry-esque hits, and I don't think those are going to stop in the NFL. And some of his underlying metrics, like pressure to sack rate, which I get is a very dorky stat. It's a nerd number. But historically, it really translates into the NFL. If you're good at avoiding sacks and not taking sacks that you shouldn't in college, you are good at that in the NFL. If you're bad at that in college, you are sure as heck going to be bad at that in the NFL. And Jaden Daniels, if you look at most of those metrics like pressure to sack rate, scramble versus throw rate under pressure, it's bad. He's there with Zach Wilson and Justin Fields. So there's just, I don't know. There is a lot of red flags, and there is plenty to like, right? He's the Heisman winner. He's an electric runner. I don't know, man. If I were a GM, I'd say, you know what? Someone else can take him. I would not take him at the top of the draft, and I just am a little concerned. But I do see the touchdown to interception ratio. He's had his moments. There's no doubt about that, and he has improved and developed pretty well. I don't know. Someone else can take him. But Michael's saying, I hope he goes to the Commanders so Jalen Carter can pick him up again like a child. That's right. That did happen. I remember. Who would have thought a year from now that Jaden Daniels would be winning the Heisman after that? Gabe say, you are kind of cooking right now. We'll see. I will be watching his career with great interest, as Chancellor Palpatine said back in episode 1. We will be watching your career with great interest. And I certainly those concerns, especially throwing over the middle, and he's pretty much all the guys. You could say this about Drake May too, who I like a lot more, but doesn't really play under center. And again, this is stuff you can learn, but we'll see. I do wonder though. Peartramp with a good question, saying, who would you say is the best number 1 pick ever drafted? Peyton Manning, Troy Aikman, Terry Bradshaw, Paul Hornung, the golden boy. Let's go. Bruce Smith. It's got to be Peyton, right? I'm trying to think of just let's just pull up first overall picks. Shout out the golden boy, though. That's a heck of a call right there. It's got to be Peyton, though, right? But that's a Packers fan right there, going all the way back to the olden days. Jay Burwanger, that's right. First ever draft pick. That's right. That's a fun little trivia fact, right? If you want to impress your friends, do you know the first ever draft pick was Jay Burwanger? You got some good names in here. Concrete Charlie, right? The last 60-minute man. Played both ways as a center and linebacker. Also, known for ending Frank Gifford's career. That's a crazy story if you're not familiar with Concrete Charlie. There's Paul Hornung right there. The golden boy. Tailback out of Notre Dame. Ron Yeri, shout out Vikings. I believe he's the Vikings' only ever first overall pick. OJ, the juice is loose. There's Terry Bradshaw. Leroy Selman. We're looking at some of the Hall of Famers. The Tyler Rose, Earl Campbell. Oh, John Elway's a good one. I wouldn't say he's the best, but certainly lived up to the hype. There's a lot of people that say John Elway is overrated. We almost think it's gotten to the point where he's underrated. We are not done with the 90s, for those of you that might be on Twitter too much like I am. We are not done with the 90s on this channel. Thank you very much. There's Bruce Smith, all-time sack leader. Troy Aikman. Orlando Pace. It's got to be Peyton, right? I mean, no one after Peyton has come quite as close. Some great players in there, obviously, but it's got to be Peyton. Gabe saying Eric Fisher. He might be second after Peyton. Eric Fisher. Oh, man. Jamarcus Russell. Good times, right? See, is there anything else that's happened? Checking Twitter right now to see if there's any other interesting signings, but yeah, man, I mean, there's just a lot going on right now, and you know what? I love it. They just need receivers. They do, Brett Coleman. They do. So maybe they should take one. Tim Couch, yeah. How about, here's a fun trivia question. Well, I guess not kind of a fun fact trivia question. The Browns actually had back-to-back first overall picks the following year, 2000, also known as the Tom Brady draft. They had the first overall pick, and they took Courtney Brown, a defensive end out of Penn State. I don't know how I know that. Well, I do actually. It's because I had a NFL preview magazine, 2010, and they looked back on the 2000 class 10 years later, and they went through all the first round picks, and Courtney Brown was the first overall pick. Didn't amount to much. Jack saying, but guys, Caleb Williams is the greatest prospect since Andrew Luck. He is definitely not overrated or anything. Ooh, the Caleb Williams takes coming in too. He will be the greatest number one pick. I sense a little bit of sarcasm. You know, I think probably general consensus has settled down a little bit with Caleb, right? I mean, there was that sort of narrative at the beginning of the season that like, oh man, this is the greatest prospect since Luck. He's got a Mahomes level ceiling. And while I do think that there is still a lot there, that, yeah, some of that has died down. Fair or not. Some of it really has to do with USC not being maybe quite as good as some people thought they could be this year. That being said, I still think he probably is QB1 in this class. There is still just so much to like with him. His live arm, how he can be really creative, right? Making throws from different angles, off platform, and how he kind of did. It's weird to say about USC, who's usually a very good program, but like he kind of made lemonade out of lemons there. I mean, every game was like 40-50, and he just was asked to do so much. There is some of that stuff that might not translate to the NFL. It really is almost exclusively shotgun RPO. And, you know, unless you're Shane Steichen, like most teams just don't only rely on that. Not to say that the Colts only do that. But so there will be some of that learning curve too. But, man, he checks most of the boxes. And I think if you're the Bears, you're happy getting him first overall. But I don't think he's like an Andrew Luck level prospect. But he's probably the best since Trevor, you know. I would put him at like a Kyler Murray or above level prospect. I think his ceiling is prime Russ. I really like that comparison. Prime Russ is Caleb's ceiling. Gabe saying Caleb should get a job at a nail salon. Man, that point is just so played out, right? So what? He paints his nails. He can spin the rock. He's not toxic. Like, literally no one outside of like people on Twitter has ever said anything bad about Caleb. Like his teammates and his coaches always rave about him, but who knows, right? And Parachamp saying, going in the other direction, do you have a worst number one pick in mind? Depending on Bryce Young, could be up there with how good Stroud will be. Well, not only that, but how much the Panthers gave up to get him. I mean, my goodness, right? They sold the farm for a QB and then they picked the wrong one. It might be Jamarcus Russell, though, too. Given the players that the Raiders passed on, I mean, that was the same class as Joe Thomas, Adrian Peterson, and Calvin Johnson, right? Those guys, I believe, all went in the top 6 or 7 in the draft. And the Raiders took Jamarcus Russell. There's some wild stories about Jamarcus Russell out there. There was, like, during training camp, there were questions over like, oh, is he watching film? Like, I don't think he's watching film. So one of his coaches gave him a DVD case that was supposed to have game film in there, but the case was empty. They didn't put any disc in there, and they gave him the case. And then they're like, yeah, you know, watch the film and then come back to us the next day and return it to us. And then the next day he comes back with the case and he gives it to coach. And they're like, did you watch it? And he's like, yeah. And then they're like, open the case, and it was empty. Oh my gosh. It's not the fact that he paints its nails. It's the cocky screw Utah. I mean, I get that. But again, man, like, and this is not even a shot at like the Buccaneers, but dog, your QB is Baker Mayfield. Like, this is the dude that planted a flag in the middle of the field. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know. Let the competitors compete, you know? Competitors compete. Jack said Stroud would have probably been just as bad with the Panthers. This is a team that was not ready for a rookie QB. No, they were not. And again, like trading up like that is kind of a win now move. And I will eat crow and take the L, and that I actually kind of thought that they were ready. Not to like win the Super Bowl with Bryce Young, but I'm not going to lie. I was embarrassingly high on the Panthers last year, and I thought, you know what? Maybe they could go 9-8 and win the division. And then they were the worst team in the league. That was a famous doctor take right there. That is one of my biggest L's. I actually picked the Panthers to win the division going into the year. Oh, man. Tony Mandritz. Yeah, that's a great one. Packers took him first overall in 1989, and that was a class that had Troy Aikman, Barry Sanders, and Deion Sanders, right? Yeah, that's right. Gabe saying, open the case, he won that game. You know, to each their own. Always good times on here. All right. Well, the Giants traded for Brian Burns. That was a fun, kind of out of nowhere move. I thought that there was a chance that, like, maybe he gets traded, right? They brought him back, but it was pretty obvious he was not going to stay there long term, so it made sense for the Panthers to get something. But Lord, oh Lord almighty, they said no to 2 first-rounders from the Rams like a year and a half ago, and what a bad choice. What a bad choice. They don't even get a first back for him now, and the Giants already agreed to terms with him, and man, they've got some intriguing talent on their defensive line now. Now, on the surface level, it might look like Kayvon broke out last year, and he did put up a nice amount of sacks. He still wasn't winning as consistently. I think that some of those sacks are a little bit misleading, but he is like a talented player. I'm not saying Kayvon is bad. I do think he's going to be much better off as the number 2 opposite of Brian Burns now. And, you know, I love Brian Burns a lot. He comes to this defensive line where he's not even going to be the best player. They have, in my opinion, quite literally one of the best players in football in Sexy Dexy, Big Dexter Lawrence up the middle. I mean, I think this could be a pretty fun defense next year. And I liked some of the moves that they've made in their secondary. Deonte Banks wasn't perfect, but he was a rookie, and he had some tough assignments, playing a lot of man, and I thought he did all right. There's something there with Deonte Banks. Losing Xavier McKinney hurts, but I kind of like what the Giants are doing with their defense here. They have really prioritized the front. This is just tough, old-fashioned New York Giants football, right? Go get the quarterback, you know? So Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau. Very, very intriguing pass rush. And you've got Azeez mixed in there too. So I kind of like that. It's an interesting move, right? Because you don't think of the Giants as buyers. But again, they're doing the classic, you know what? We're just going to sign Brian Burns in free agency a year early. People clowned on the Bears when they did that with Montez Sweat, but it really worked out for him. So I'm not going to be hard on the Giants here for paying up for one of the better players at his position and filling an immediate need for the Giants. I like that move. Jack saying Mina and it was a good choice. The Rams didn't need him. It would have been scary. Gabe saying the Raiders D-line is going to be terrifying, and 8 and 9 has never looked so ferocious for the Raiders. You know what? Let's talk about the Raiders. I do want to do this mock draft. So we will talk about the Raiders. We'll get to your question games, and then we'll run a little mock draft before we say goodnight here. And I want to talk about the Raiders because they are a team that just fascinates me. And what are they doing? Not that it's a bad thing. I don't mind the Raiders like being a little bit aggressive. I just genuinely wonder what their vision is here. So the big move that they made today was they went and got Christian Wilkins, a player that I think we are all very high on, one of the best in the league at his position. Fantastic interior defensive lineman. And coming off a career year, you know, he notched double-digit sacks, I believe, and had a career high in pressures. Actually, no, that might have been last year. I was looking a lot into Christian Wilkins because he was like my dream free agent for the Vikings. Unfortunately, he went to the Raiders instead. But yeah, okay, 9 sacks, not 10. But 9 sacks as an interior defensive lineman, pretty good. And consistently, ever since he came into the league, has been one of the best in the game against the run. He offers a lot, and he'll command a lot of double teams, some even triple teams. He's exactly what you want as a big guy up the middle. And now you're putting him with Max frickin' Crosby, who I honestly think he's the best edge player in the NFL. He does it all. He commands double teams. He was the 8th most double-teamed edge last year. He's elite against the run. I mean, just I mean, just everything, right? He can set the edge so well. He's amongst the league leaders in tackles for loss. Just there's never a bad rep for him in the run game. And he's one of the best pass rushers. I mean, always up there for pressures, quarterback hits, sacks, you name it. I mean, that safety to ice the game against the Patriots last year was so sick. He's just such a cool player. He seems to love being a Raider, and I love that. And it makes me very happy that Max Crosby will have someone to help him on the defensive line now. Because that's the other thing. Max Crosby has been essentially doing this all by himself his whole career. And now he's got a legit elite interior presence to maybe free things up a little bit. So this D-line could be nasty. It really could. And it makes sense for Antonio Pierce, their head coach, defensive guy. This is an Antonio Pierce-looking defense right here. And the defense played pretty well once Pierce took over. So I do like what they're building on defense. There are just some questions I have what they're doing on offense. I mean, for one, bringing in Luke Getsy after the run he had with the Bears was interesting because he seemed to be probably one of the biggest things hurting the Bears operation. And I know that, Jack, you've complained a lot about Shane Waldron and the screens and everything. Man, oh man, oh man, Luke Getsy takes that to a whole new level. And then they went out and signed Gardner Minshew today, which, you know, they're not really in a position to draft at least one of the top-end QBs, so that makes sense. But we're probably going to be looking at a QB battle between Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. O'Connell was the preseason darling last year. A lot of people were really high on him, like, hey, there might be something. Maybe he could be a solid starter. He was fine, I guess. He wasn't, I mean, no one expected him to be like Josh Allen or anything, but I think you could just best describe Aiden O'Connell as, he's fine. I think some people might be disappointed in the Gardner Minshew experience. I honestly, and this is not me trying to be mean or anything, I don't think Gardner Minshew was really that great last year, to be honest. There were a lot of times where Gardner Minshew almost lost the Colts games. I mean, this was a very good situation for him with Shane Steichen as the offensive play caller and some intriguing weapons around him and a good running game he can turn to. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not quite as high on Minshew. I think he's a good backup, but I think if people are expecting Minshew to the Colts almost made the playoffs with Minshew, let him cook in Vegas. This was a spot I would have liked to see Justin Fields, to be quite honest. His market seems to really be cool, but I thought that this would have been an interesting spot for Justin Fields. Although I guess, why put him back with Luke Getsy when that didn't work out? So who knows? I didn't even think about that until now. That makes sense, I guess, why they didn't get him. But the Raiders are interesting. All right, before we fire up this mock draft, got a few questions here. Game's asking, which non-QB free agency move do you think will be the most impactful? Ooh, that is a good question. Let me rack my brain here for a second. I should have thought about that a little bit. I love the non-QB disclaimer, right? And I guess this isn't a free agency move, but I don't think Brian Burns is going to be the most impactful. It's not like he's going to put the Giants over the top or anything. Probably not Saquon, although that is, in my opinion, a big upgrade for the Eagles. And hopefully now with a different offensive coordinator, they can get back to running the ball a little bit more. It's kind of weird how they just went away from that a little bit. That's the way that they're built, but I digress. That is an excellent question. Now, one player to watch is going to be Danielle Hunter, right? He's probably the best player left on the market so far. Elite pass rusher. Still not quite yet 30. He was linked to the 49ers a lot. I don't think they're going to get him considering they went and got Leonard Floyd, which is a move I don't hate. Probably going to replace Chase Young, who's likely to not come back. He might have already signed somewhere else. Man, I don't know why I'm struggling with this so much. Most impactful. This is not my answer for most impactful, I don't think. Here's what I'll say. Here's maybe my favorite under the radar signing right now. And I kind of talked about it a little bit. I really like Xavier McKinney going to the Packers, considering the defensive coordinator that they brought in and how much safety has been an issue for Green Bay and how they are a team. Like, this probably will be a legit difference maker for this organization, right? Because they feel like they're really close. They do. And I'm not like as a Vikings fan, I recognize like, uh-oh, that's our division rival, right? This team feels really close. And they bring in, I forgot his name, Jeff Hafley from Boston College, who's going to be kind of going against the grain and running a lot of one high. At least that's what his background indicates that he'll be doing, right? So to go get a really good safety, arguably the best one on the market, someone who is capable of being that center fielder, which again, you don't see a lot of in today's NFL. That is a perfect fit of them getting a player that they need, that addresses an obvious need and fits what they want to do schematically. And it's for a team that had an obvious weakness there last year and were still good. And if they can get a good contribution out of them this year, I think that's a big reason why the Packers could be even better. I do think the Packers will be like a hipster pick to make the Super Bowl. And I'm not saying that I'm going to do that, but keep your eye out. They're going to be a popular Super Bowl dark horse. And honestly, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. They have built something really quickly here. So I'm going to say Xavier McKinney. Maybe not the most impactful, but it's up there. And it's one that I wanted to talk about. Pearchamp saying, I forgot the Cowboys got rid of Tony Pollard. Their running game will be interesting to see how that plays out. Yeah, they did. I mean, they just kind of let him walk. I wonder if that means that they're going to bring in someone. Going to the Titans was interesting. I mean, he is from Tennessee, right? He went to Memphis for college, so I guess that makes sense. But that was an interesting... I was very surprised by that signing, to be honest. All right, so let's do this one round mock draft and then we'll call it a night. And I'll do my best here. I guess we don't need to pick for the Browns or the Panthers because they don't have a first round pick. Tough. I think I did this right. Yeah, okay. Bears are on the clock. They've got some trades. Oh, the irony. No, we're not going to trade. All right. Bears on the clock at 1. Now, this has been the whole discussion this whole time, right? Oh, are they going to take a quarterback? Are they going to keep Justin Fields? Just because Justin Fields hasn't been moved doesn't mean I don't think that they're not going to go quarterback here. All signs point to it, right? It just makes the most sense. They're going to get their pick of a pretty good class. They probably won't be up here again next year. You got to go Caleb, right? He's been the guy the whole time. Immediate upgrade at the quarterback position. The defense is looking nice. They've got a legit one in DJ Moore. Their offensive line is coming together well. I think the Bears are cooking a little bit, and I don't know why it's doing this. Let me refresh. It just can't process just how good of a pick that was. What are we doing here, Google? Come on. All right. Let's try this again. No, we're still not trading. Let's just start the draft. All right. Caleb to the Bears at 1. Oh, there we go. Okay, Commanders on the clock at 2. Now, this one is interesting because the Commanders brought in Cliff Kingsbury to be their offensive coordinator. And it's just a lot of air raidy stuff. It's a lot of stuff that we saw with Kyler Murray, right? Which didn't exactly turn out well. It was a lot of throwing to the sidelines, which... interestingly enough, would actually really play into, if I can find him, Jaden Daniels. And, you know, this has been the rumor, kind of, is that Jaden Daniels might actually go at 2 to the Commanders. Now, if I was the Commanders GM, I would not take Daniels. And again, this is just like my own. But here's what I'll do, is I will try and mix in kind of what I would do with what I think would happen, because... again, not to like, oh, look at me, I'm different. Like, I don't know if I would take Daniels until like pick 20 or something personally, which I know is crazy and maybe that's too hot of a take, but I'm not just going to have Jaden Daniels slide down until 20. I mean, that's just not realistic. So, you know, and I don't want to do trades. Okay, here's the thing, right? So I was like, heck yeah, mock draft, right? Part of me wants this to be its own stream, and I want to be a little bit more prepared for it. So I'm going to ask for you guys' forgiveness. I think as soon as I loaded this in, I was like, you know what? I don't have a clear vision for if it's going to be what I want to do or what the team would do and stuff like that. We're going to talk free agency a little bit more instead. I promise we will get a doc mock, as I like to call it. We will get a mock draft. How about not tonight, though? Let's focus on free agency tonight. I will come back better than ever, locked in and prepared, and we can do its own stream. It'll get its own stream. That'll make it a little bit more special. So we'll talk a few more free agency deals, some off-season moves, and then we will probably call tonight because I'm starting to become an old man, and 10 o'clock is starting to become bedtime, just a little bit, but let's talk a few more. Talk a few more moves here. But don't worry, we will get a mock draft in. Don't you worry. Once the dust of free agency settles, we'll lock in for draft season, and maybe I'll do some prospect breakdowns too, whether it be on stream or on my website, which, by the way, if you haven't checked out the website, go ahead and check it out. I think I have the link in my Twitter bio. It might be linked on my channel too, but I occasionally write on there, and I've actually got my next piece loading in the chamber. It's about Kirk Cousins and the Kirk Cousins experience, so get ready for that. As Jack said, it didn't load because Williams doesn't want to sign with the Bears. That's the rumors. Oh, good times. Sorry about that, Gabe. I know you're looking forward to the mock draft, but I tell you what, it will be a much better product if you just give me a little bit of time. Let me cook just a little bit. But let's look at free agency buzz, shall we? Oh, talkie to the Patriots. Okay, interesting. Let's just catch up on some of the recent moves that we might have missed. Uter Gross Matos to the 49ers too. Interesting. The 49ers pass rush factory. We'll see if it can churn out another one or save another career. You know, I actually kind of like Uter Gross Matos. I've always kind of liked his game a little bit. He's not a superstar or anything, but I've always thought he was a solid player. Maybe they can coach him up a little bit. I wonder though. It hasn't quite been the same since they lost Salah and D'Amico Ryans. It wasn't quite as good last year is what I'll say. Texans bring back Noah Brown. Shout out Noah Brown, right? Remember, Gabe, when we thought we made $1 million off of Noah Brown? That's not a bad move, right? Bring back some wide receiver depth. The Texans are an interesting team because they've lost more than they gained today, and a lot of people thought that they were going to be big spenders, but they've probably got something left here. I think that they're maybe waiting out this first phase, and then they're going to go in tomorrow or something. But they lost a few of their defenders. But they do have the cap space to make some moves. Talkie. Chiefs amongst teams interested in Darnell Mooney. They do need a receiver, and I wonder if the Chiefs are going to make a play for a receiver here, right? If they are going to trade L'Jarius Sneed, you can't bring back Chris Jones, Sneed, and get a receiver. You can probably only do 2 of the 3. And I think they're going to pick Jones and a receiver. And I get that. Even though I like Sneed a lot as a player, if you can trade Sneed, get a second-round pick in return, not have to pay him, it's probably worth it. Go get a receiver. You got to get a receiver, though. Malik Harrison to the Ravens. Tommy Townsend to the Texans. Interesting. Oh, country singer Luke Combs calls out the Panthers. Big move. At Panthers, what are we doing? No first-round pick for McCaffrey in a few years back, and now none for Burns. Are we just firebombing the whole team here or what? I usually don't comment on these things, but it's just becoming slow torture at this point. 12.2 thousand likes. Wow. Talk to him, Luke Combs. Grace and Truth in here saying, forget Utah and let them cook. Welcome to the stream, Grace and Truth. Good to have you in here. How about the Lions trading for Carlton Davis today? Maybe not like Darrelle Revis or anything, but I feel like it's a good move for Detroit. You get a corner who's comfortable in man coverage. The Lions run a lot of man. You can bump Cam Sutton one spot down the depth chart, put him in a more comfortable spot. I think overall it's a good trade for both teams, and the Buccaneers get a 3rd-round pick in return. And also the Lions get a former Viking, Marcus Davenport, who I was asked today if Marcus Davenport is any good or not. I'm going to be honest, I do think he is a pretty good player. I like Marcus Davenport, the player. Now, there is one catch, though, with him, in that he is a good player when he is on the field. Unfortunately, he is never on the field. I mean, he was kind of healthy last year, but even then, 9 games, 1 game. Excuse me. Yeah, he barely played for the Vikings last year. However, the few games he did play, he looked pretty good. But a lot of Vikings fans don't like him. They thought he was milking the injury. I do think it's kind of funny how he went to the Lions now. And I already just know he's going to be healthy this season. They're going to get like 15 games out of him. And it's just the most obvious revenge game ever. Marcus Davenport is going to get a multi-sack game against the Vikings. I think everyone can see it coming. And I think he is a good player. I think it's a good low-risk, high-reward signing for the Lions. You might as well take a one-year flyer on a guy who's obviously talented. Maybe this year things will be different. Maybe this year he'll finally be healthy. The Vikings tried to be that team last year. It didn't work out. And I also like his fit with the Lions a little bit more, as you might see the OLB. I mean, he was still just an edge player, but he was a 3-4 edge, so he was standing up in a 2-point stance a lot more. With his build, he just profiles a lot more as a guy that you want his hand in the dirt, a true through and through defensive end in a 4-3 where he's down and dirty. So I like that fit a lot more too. Get him back on the ground a little bit. So honestly, not a bad signing. There's a lot of Vikings fans, like, have fun. I mean, maybe he gets hurt again, but I don't know. I'd be a little scared if he stayed healthy. So talked about Jordan Hicks, another punter signing. How about Will Lutz signing with, I think, the Jags and then being like, oh, just kidding. Because legal tampering, right? None of these are technically official yet. So we could see a DeAndre Jordan situation. If you know, you know. Oh, okay. Here's one team I really want to talk about, the Dolphins. As Grayson Truth says, I like the Davis trade from the Lions standpoint. No, it's a good move. I think it's a good move. So the Dolphins might be the big loser of free agency, in my opinion. And I hinted at this in my stream last week, and that I had a Dolphins take that was cooking for a little bit, and I was waiting to share it. Well, I'm going to share it now. And there's a few layers of spiciness to this. There's one layer of spicy, then one, and then there's a scorcher buried in the third layer. So we'll go through all these. So the least spicy take is that, I think the Dolphins, this was kind of their shot this year. Well, I guess, yeah, this was their shot this year to win the division. Right? Everything lined up for them with the Bills' wonky start and them losing all those close games and being like 500 in November and stuff like that. And with how quickly the Dolphins raced out of the gate, scoring 70 on the Broncos and stuff like that. And, they kind of went all in based off their cap situation and their draft picks and them trading for Jalen Ramsey, and they signed David Long. Like this was a team that really went all in this year. And Tua's still on his rookie deal, so he was cheap. And man, they did all that, and they still couldn't win the division, and they still went one and done in the playoffs. Oh, and they also brought in Vic Fangio as their defensive coordinator, so it's supposed to be an improvement in that regard too. And Vic Fangio, like he was like the guy that was going to tie it all together, right? That's why they went and got Jalen Ramsey, because he plays so well in a Fangio-type defense where you move him all over the secondary. And now they're starting to pay the price a little bit, so this goes into the next layer. They're paying the price. They've let a lot of guys go. They lose Christian Wilkins. They lose Andrew Van Ginkel. They lose Robert Hunt, who got $100 million from the Panthers, which I like Robert Hunt, and he's a good player. I mean, that's the Panthers tax right there. When you're not as good of a team, you have to pay a premium to get players. It's like when Christian Kirk went to the Jags, and that move actually kind of worked out, and Lord knows the Panthers need offensive line help. Man. But they're losing guys on their offensive line. They've lost a lot of guys on their defense who is pretty good, and they lose Vic Fangio. They've lost a lot. And so I don't know that the Dolphins I don't think they're going to be like terrible next year. I don't think they're going to be that great. I think layer 2 of this take is that the Dolphins, I don't think they make the playoffs next year. I still have the Bills winning the division even after some of the moves that they've made, getting rid of some of their guys. I still think they're the better team. I mean, the fact that the Bills beat them this year shows, like, even in the Bills down year and the Dolphins up year, the Bills still won the division. And there's questions about Tua. I don't want to pick on him too much because I feel like some people are just like so aggressive towards him. But it's pretty obvious who he is as a quarterback. There's some limitations there. And he's really elevated by the offense around him. But even the offense is not perfect. And there's this whole narrative that the Dolphins can't beat good teams. I have a theory as to why. And this will eventually lead into my third take. And this one is crazy. I'm not even saying this one is going to happen. And I'll say that there's like a caveat with it. But so the narrative around the Dolphins the past 2 years is that they have not been able to beat good teams. And if you look at their record against 500 or above teams, I mean, it speaks for itself, right? They can beat up against the Commanders on a noon o'clock game, but noon o'clock, what am I saying? 1 o'clock noon game, but they struggle to beat the big boys like the Bills. You know, they had the big collapse after going 8-3 to start out last year, and then another kind of collapse this year. Their offense is kind of two-dimensional in that their passing game is, send Tyreek Hill in motion and hope he does something cool. Like, let's call the Tyreek Hill go for 200 yards in a game play. And their running game is good. And I love outside zone, but that's really all it is it's outside zone with speedy backs. They have a good 1-2 punch in Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane. And Jeff Wilson you could throw in there. But it's all just speedsters, right? And they just run to the outside. They run to the perimeter more than any other team, which can get you a lot of big chunk plays. But it occasionally gets you like a big tackle for loss. There are a lot of times where they start behind the chains in 2nd and 14. And not only that, like they just can't do anything else beyond that. They struggled in short yardage, like 2 yards or less situations, more than any other team last year. And so when you can only do two things, you can beat up against the Commanders of the world, but it's just a lot harder to beat good teams when you're two-dimensional. And I like Mike McDaniel a lot. I think he brings a lot of interesting stuff to the table, right? He's a very innovative mind. He's a bright offensive mind. He is kind of a two-trick pony so far, we've seen as a play caller. And with his situational, just like the meltdown against the Titans. And so, here's what I'll say. Here's my ultimate spicy take. 2 years from now in the offseason, I wonder if Mike McDaniel is going to be the Dolphins coach. And I'm not saying he's going to get fired. Maybe he doesn't get fired. I just think if there's a team that I could see things going downhill really quickly with, it's the Dolphins. And I like Mike McDaniel a lot. I think he brings a lot of good ideas to the table. But this is a big year for him. Can you do something else besides these two things? We've seen it work fairly well in these 2 years, but can you bring something else to the table? That's what separates the guys like McVay and Kyle Shanahan from him, in that like McVay completely reworked the Rams run game this year, and they became one of the best running teams in the league, or Kyle Shanahan completely reworking how the 49ers did things, going away from zone and then coming back to zone a little bit. So I don't know if it's the same story again this year and the Dolphins beat up on the good teams or the bad teams and they lose to the good teams and they've just gotten a little bit worse. And then they have an interesting decision to make with Tua's contract and they lose Vic Fangio. I'm not very high on the Dolphins. And I wonder in 2 years if Mike McDaniel is going to be their coach. That's my spicy take. Let's come back to this after the 2025 season, 2026 offseason. So like March 2026. Let's come back to this and see if Mike McDaniel is still the Dolphins head coach. That is like my spiciest take that I have, that I wonder. And it's not even that I think he's a bad coach, but I would like to see a little bit more. Whew. I think it's a pretty good one to end on, to be honest. I don't know. That was a nice little scorcher right there to end it with. Well, how about this? Now, I saw Pear Champ's comment too saying, I just saw Aaron Jones might be going to the Vikings. That would be heartbreaking. For you, for me, I would throw a parade. I would love Aaron Jones to come to the Vikings. I think he's a fantastic running back, and Lord knows we need one. I would strongly advocate for bringing him in. I don't care if he's 29. I don't care if it's not cool to pay running backs. I would gladly do that. I would be very happy if we brought in Aaron Jones. We'll see. I have seen the rumors. I don't know how much substance there are to them, but maybe I'll go dive into that here in a sec. But Gabe saying, I don't think I can professionally say what I think about that trade. Are you referring to the Tyreek trade, I wonder? Maybe. Or the Jalen Ramsey trade, or some sort of trade. But CB's in here saying, hey, Doc, what's going on, CB? Welcome to the stream. We've been talking free agency today. You know, we've had a lot to talk about. We talked about your Packers a little bit, and I gave the Packers an award of sorts, and then I said I think they had the best under-the-radar signing today. I love the move to get Xavier McKinney. Fits well in what they're probably going to do on defense with their new coordinator. Feels an obvious need, and it might put them a little bit more over the top. They're an interesting team to look at, and that, you know, I'm going to think long and hard about who I have winning the NFC North for this upcoming season. It might be the Packers. We'll see. We'll see. Henry says, you've got to wonder how much better the Dolphins season would play out without all their injuries. That is fair. They were very banged up on defense at the end of the year. To play devil's advocate, though, I would say that at the end of the year, their defense was better than their offense. Like, their defense played very well in that playoff game against the Chiefs, and that's typically how it goes, right? With Vic Fangio, it's a hard scheme to learn, and typically, like, from the second half of the year onward, that's when things really start to get together, and like year 2 is when it really takes off. They don't get that year 2 now. They have to start over. And I don't know. I mean, look, like they feasted on the Commanders, and after that, they didn't really have one of those games where it's like, wow, this Dolphins offense is sick, you know? Like, they had 30 against the Jets, but even then they had a defensive touchdown in there, and it was the Jets with their season pretty much over at that point. And then it was a defensive win against the Cowboys. They got blown out by the Ravens. They scored only 14 against the Bills and then only 7 against the Chiefs. So I get what you're saying, and that is fair, and I didn't maybe consider that enough. They were banged up, and they were banged up in their backfield a little bit too, but I don't know. I would say that their offense was, I don't want to say a problem, but kind of a problem down the stretch. And their defense was greatly punching above its weight, and their offense was punching below. So it's just something to chew on. I don't know. But we shall see. Anyways, with that being said, we've had a lot of fun talking ball on here today. Free agency sorry, I caught myself again, and I should have named my stream this. Maybe I'll go edit the name. Legal tampering, day 1. The tampering is very much legal, folks. It is allowed. None of these deals are official yet, but you can bet some good money that they're going to go through. I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to be like, I'm actually going to the Broncos, but we'll see. Could you imagine? But with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight, spending your Monday night with me, talking ball as always. The chat was awesome. You guys were phenomenal today. Thank you guys so much for showing up and showing out. Stay tuned for that mock draft. Don't you worry, Gabe. The mock draft will come. Just not tonight. I gotta lock in, and as Grace and Truth said, let me cook a little bit, but I will cook. But until next time, I can't wait to see you guys all again soon. Keep your eyes peeled on Twitter, as I'll be just sharing my takes, and keep your eyes peeled for that new written piece. I gotta get in my bag and write about Kirk Cousins a little bit, but I'm excited for that. But until next time, hope to see you guys all again soon. The doctor's out. You guys take care and have a great night. Enjoy legal tampering.